Well, hey everyone, and welcome back to Get Your Geek On's Marvel Cinematic Universe Retrospective. I'm Robert, that's Aaron, and we're here to talk movie by movie through the MCU's Infinity Saga. 23 movies over 11 years, 23 videos. This is number 23. We made it to the end.
We did. I'm excited. And expect spoilers, guys, as we get into each movie, but we'll let you know whether we believe if it's essential to the overall arc of the MCU. Think of this as your guide into getting into the MCU.
I mean, there are definitely a couple of filler movies. If you're a completionist like me, you might rate them all as essential. This one, I will say for sure, you just mentioned an entry point into the MCU. This is not. Do not use this as your entry point into the MCU, right?
That's a good point. Don't do that.
But
you could,
all right,
but you'll be so
let's talk about
backwards.
this. So, is this movie essential?
Yes.
For the MCU?
Yes. I think it is.
So this is what I will say. For the Infinity Saga, I don't think it is.
Okay.
But I think it's setting up a lot of things that will... So this will be essential for the MCU.
Right.
But if you're talking about just the Infinity Saga, I don't know that we need this one because I think Endgame really wraps up everything that we need. This is very nice. We get a little bit more. We get to learn about how the world is coping with what's happened in the aftermath of Endgame. But I don't think you need it. If you end with Endgame and you feel like I don't need to watch any more Marvel movies. I've made it through. I liked that one, but I'm going to move on to something different. You don't need to watch this one. Yes?
You need to watch it because it's Spider-Man, and I don't care what anyone else says. So watch the movie.
Right. Okay.
Don't care.
Yep.
I don't care what you think. You're watching the movie.
Okay. Yeah. So let's rewind to our public expectations. So this was a little over a year ago. The big thing that I remember leading up to this was the trailers trying to really hide the Endgame plot point of 5 years later.
Yeah.
You know, they were really trying to not show anything that would lead you to think that there was that time jump. That was kind of the big whoa of Endgame. Because I think most people went, well, everyone's going to come back. I mean, we had Spider-Man. He got dusted away in Infinity War. And then this movie was coming out only a couple months after Endgame. And it was like, so clearly he's coming back. Like, there was no...
I think he was on Jimmy Kimmel or something and dressed in the new Spider-Man suit. And he's like, wait, how'd you come back? Yeah. And he's like, I hear Thanos, and he runs off.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not surprising that he came back, but certainly the 5-year gap was something that we didn't know until we went and saw Endgame, which came out a few months before this movie. So I remember that about the trailers. I remember people, they were kind of mixed. There were a lot of people that went, Endgame ended it for me. I don't need to see any more. I'm done with the MCU. I'm done with superheroes. And then there were other people that, were really excited. It was Spider-Man, which he's a very popular character. A lot of people love him. I know he's your number one guy. He's a lot of people's number one guy. Yeah. And so people were excited for that. And I think, people were excited for this movie. And it made over $1 billion. So ultimately, it made its money. Yeah. What about, do you remember anything else about the public expectations for this?
I mean, on my end, I don't. I remember a lot of people kind of what you kind of covered it. It was, why do I need to watch this? I already watched Endgame. Isn't that it?
Yeah.
Why do I need to watch this?
Yeah.
And for me, my always explanation when I had people like that was, well, this is the fallout. This is what's going to happen after everything. So think of it as a fallout. Like the bombs are done, which now I'm going to have to bleep that out because you can't say fluff on YouTube. So that'll be a different word now.
Way to go.
But yeah, so you have to have that fallout. So that's how I always described it. But yeah, I know a lot of people that were at first against it. And then when the movie came out and people watched it, they're like, okay, I'll go watch it.
I think there were a lot of people that actually, the casting of Jake Gyllenhaal, I think pulled a lot of those people in that were like, do I really need to watch this? And I was like, well, it's Jake Gyllenhaal. And everybody loves Jake Gyllenhaal. So yeah, that made sense. Personally, I remember not only was I excited for Jake Gyllenhaal because I really like him, but I think, I may have said this before in earlier videos. I know I called out Tom Holland's acting specifically in Infinity War or Infinity War Review. I think he is the most talented actor working in the MCU. Full stop. Okay. I think he's incredible. I think he's really, really, really good. Okay. And so I want all of the movies that Spider-Man is in, not just because I think Spider-Man's a great character, because yes, I can concede that I do enjoy Spider-Man a lot.
Yeah.
But I also think that Tom Holland is just, his portrayal is fantastic. I think he's such a good actor. And you know, I was also excited for Jake Gyllenhaal, but I will say, and there were some circumstances that led to this. Okay. You know, this is in the lead up to my wedding. This was the first movie since Thor: The Dark World that I did not see opening night in theater. I did see it very early in its run still. It was within the first week that it was in theaters. And it's also the only movie, I want to say since, it's probably since Ant-Man.
Okay.
That I didn't see multiple times in theaters. I only saw it the one time in theaters.
Okay.
And actually this watch was only my second watch of the movie. And so you know, that's what I remember. I remember the first time I watched it, I said, that's the best live action Spider-Man movie I've ever seen. And I hadn't returned to it until now. It's only been a little over a year, so it's not like, you know.
No,
but,
it hasn't been long.
But we'll see if I still think that by the end. But what about you? Your personal expectations going into this? I know you're the biggest Spider-Man fan, but you know, what were your expectations going into it, and then what was your first viewing experience like?
So my first expectations, like when I went to go see it, I mean, of course, I'm excited. I really enjoyed him after seeing Homecoming, after seeing Avengers: Infinity War, Captain America: Civil War.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And this was the first time, and like I think I've said in the past, Tobey was a good Peter. Andrew Garfield was a good Spider-Man.
Yep.
Tom Holland is good at both.
Correct.
I still, going into this movie, I always felt that. After watching it that first time, I still felt that. I was like, he's a great Peter Parker. He's a great Spider-Man. He's hitting them both really well. I have my issues with it still. There's still a couple things that when we first watched it at the end of it, I had my issues with it. And they're still kind of there.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about those things as we get into this.
Yeah, I was excited,
but let's go ahead and talk about a little bit of the plot. So in the aftermath of the snapping, or as they call it in this movie, the blip. So that's the MCU official canon word for it, the blip. That happened in Infinity War and Endgame. The world is now trying to come to grips with what's happening, right? And so it's now been 8 months since the events of Avengers Endgame. And Peter Parker is just trying to kind of live his normal life, right? He's, you know, still feeling a lot of the emotions of Tony dying, you know, his kind of mentor, losing him, and now feeling the weight of expectations of having to be maybe the next Tony Stark, the next Iron Man, right? But he just wants to be Spider-Man. He just wants to be your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. That was, you know, kind of his big thing at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming was, you know, I just want to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But a new threat has emerged. They're called the Eternals. They're here to threaten his friends.
Was it Hydra Man?
And our world. Yeah, but Molten Man, Hydra Man, you know, we get little shout outs almost, right? And so Nick Fury recruits a reluctant Peter to work alongside Quentin Beck, a.k.a. Mysterio, a superhero from another dimension whose Earth was destroyed by these same elementals. But Mysterio is, of course, not who he seems. He's actually a former employee of Tony Stark, Stark Industries, and he's teamed with some other ex-employees to create a big lie. He's not from another Earth. He's not a superhero. So using hologram technology and drones, they are able to create these events with real damage. It makes everybody fooled, fool Nick Fury, and also fool Peter. Basically, his end game is to get control of Tony Stark's weapons and drones program, all of his protocols, all of that, which Tony has left to Peter. And so he's hoping to fool him into turning that over to him. And so he does that. He does trick Peter into giving him control over it. But shortly after that, Peter and MJ discover together this plot. And Peter confronts Mysterio. Mysterio overpowers him and basically tells Peter, not only am I going to kill you, but I'm going to kill all your friends. So Spider-Man is then forced to battle him in London using his new suit that he makes with Happy Hogan. And Mysterio, at the end of the battle, is struck by a bullet from a drone and killed. Spider-Man then returns to New York and resumes his life of being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man and is now dating MJ. Oh, that's fun.
That's nice. That's always nice.
And the post-credit scenes we're going to get to. I want to talk about everything else in the movie before we get to those two major reveals of the post-credit scenes. So let's go ahead and talk about the movie. Positives first.
Positives.
So what did you love about this movie?
I honestly, growing up, never in my life could have imagined seeing Mysterio on the big screen to the extent that he was done properly.
Yeah.
Mysterio in the comics is based all on holographic technology and about, smoke and mirrors kind of thing.
Correct.
A magician is almost essentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
I never thought we could get that on the big screen to this extent.
It's so good.
It's beautiful.
I will say the sequence where, he basically tricks Peter into revealing that he's told MJ and Ned about this plot.
Oh yeah.
And so that entire sequence where, he's trapped in a snow globe and he's got shards of glass falling on him and he's got a zombie Iron Man coming to
the spiders coming out of it.
It's beautiful. It's superbly executed, superbly acted.
Mm-hmm.
I love the kind of moment where you think, or Peter thinks that Mysterio's been killed, that Nick Fury killed him.
Yeah.
And he kind of, that's where he lets his guard down and reveals that it was, I told, MJ and Ned know about this, and maybe Betty, Ned's girlfriend. And, you kind of get that moment of Mysterio as Nick Fury going, you're so gullible. Like, because that was all part of the illusion was, Nick Fury killing Mysterio to get Peter. And so it's so good. It's so well constructed.
It really is.
And it's, I think the hologram technology, and it's one of those things where on rewatches you go, does that really hold up? Like, how long would he be able to keep this up? Right? Because he's able to do it a few times. Nick Fury is there for the one in Mexico.
Right.
And then obviously we've got, the one in Berlin, or it was Prague first.
Yeah.
Or no, it's in Venice first. Venice.
Okay.
Venice, and then Prague, and then it ends with the one in London.
Right.
Because Berlin is where he battles Peter. Just kind of one-on-one. But those big, shows, the light shows and everything, like, it's one of those things where it's like, is that really going to hold up? What about, if somebody's taking a video on their phone, like, is somebody going to be able to say, hey, that just blipped there or something like, so it's one of those things where you go, how long would he be able to keep this up?
Yeah. And I can get that. And I think the theory being, for the most part, he's going with the fact that all galactic level threats are gone, that Thanos is gone, and just hope. And again, he's also not thinking. Benton Beck has never been the guy that thinks. Quentin Beck, sorry, has never been the guy that thinks 10 steps ahead. He thinks one step ahead.
Correct.
And that's it. So when you're crazy like that, you don't think the end game. You think, how long can I make this work?
Yeah.
And then I have COVID. I'm just never going to see you guys again.
Well, yeah, it's almost like, the plan is to get the glasses. Yeah. What I'm going to do with the glasses or what happens after that, we're not going to worry about. I'm going to get the glasses.
But then again, he was going to kill Nick Fury. Correct. And he would have taken out S.H.I.E.L.D. essentially.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly, he was going to take out the threat of Nick Fury as, he would have been able to discover his illusion. And, he kind of drops the point that, then they'll have to listen to me because I'll be this, I be the man who defeated these. And so it's almost like he wants to be able to have influence over maybe world leaders or something like that. I don't really know, but it's also one of those things where, again, and we talked about this off camera. Yeah. It's like, what happens like when an actual threat shows up and, Thor and Hulk and, other people are like, okay, we're going to battle. Come on, Mysterio. And it's just like, well, I actually, I can't come today, guys. Like, so it's one of those things where you're like, the long-term plan, again, does it really make sense? But, for this movie, I think it works really well.
It does. I mean, again, with Quentin dying, you don't know where his plan was going to go. Exactly. He is Mysterio.
Right.
He is.
And we have that moment where, Peter says, is this real? Mm-hmm. And the response is, all the drones are down.
All the illusions are down.
Yeah.
She says.
So she doesn't actually say, yes, this is real.
Never said he's dead.
Like, and so yeah, it's one of those things where they've left themselves some wiggle room to bring back Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio if they want.
Yeah, because he didn't say, "Oh, what are his vitals?" He never said anything like that.
Yeah,
it was
in the post-credit scenes, we do get a call out the murder of Mysterio. So clearly, the world is presented with the fact that he's dead.
Yeah, but you can go into hiding now.
Whether or not he is, we don't really know. One of the other things that I think stands out to me in a really positive way is the humor of this movie. Good. And it's Spider-Man. He's supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
Like, there's supposed to be humor. I think there is a lot of really good humor in this. I think that the interplay early on in the movie when, Mysterio's still acting like a good guy.
Yeah.
That dynamic between him and Peter, I think, is really, really good.
Yeah.
There's some really, like the scene on the rooftop and some other things like those scenes are really funny. And, you kind of get that uncle kind of vibe from Mysterio. A little bit. Yeah. And so I like the humor in those scenes.
I agree with you. I remember on the first watch, I always felt Nick Fury felt a little off. Which I know we haven't talked about post scenes, but I'm glad they explained it.
Yes,
post scenes.
That was one of those things where, honestly, I think, and we will get to the post credit scenes later, but that reveal was those two post credits reveals
are amazing.
Are really the reason I think that this movie initially I was like, this is the best Spider-Man movie I've ever seen, because I had the same feeling watching the movie, going, man, this Nick Fury just seems a little bit not at the same level that we normally see. Like he's and they kind of explain it away like 5 years ago I knew everything, now I know nothing.
Yeah.
But you're also like, but it's been 8 months.
Nick Fury would know everything in 8 months.
It's Nick Fury, and so it was. I remember watching it, going, I don't know, something feels weird with this Nick Fury, and then of course they explain what that weird thing is.
Yes.
And I was like, in the movie, I was like, you did it. Yeah. Which, by the way, shout out to Samuel Jackson, because not only did he have to play that version of Nick Fury, but he also played the Mysterio version of Nick Fury, and then technically he does play the regular Nick Fury in that post-credit scene.
Yeah.
And so, again, and they're all slightly different. And so I think, very good acting.
I think the closest to the normal Nick Fury we got was when he tranquilizes Ned, which to me, that's a Nick Fury thing.
For sure.
And he has the conversation right there.
Yeah. Which is, like, again, funny.
It's a funny conversation, but that was the closest to the regular Nick Fury we could get. And then the rest of the film, he always felt off to me.
Yeah.
But that was like, okay, so I was like, cool. And it's Nick Fury, then he's already threatening to kill the next person that comes in.
Yeah,
because
it's
they
the
keep
introduction of Nick Fury. Yeah. It worked. And then as soon as you start adding in other characters like Maria Hill or Quentin Beck, and it's almost like the way he's talking to other people, that's really not Nick Fury. What's going on? So again, very clever.
It was really good. I mean, again, I still enjoyed this film. Sitting down, watching it, like you said, about a year later. I've watched it maybe 3 or 4 times now. Okay. I still love this movie. It still holds up perfectly to me. I think, again, I still love the technology. Whatever, all the graphics, it's
really good.
Oh gosh, they're so amazing. And again, I also never thought in my entire life we could get the fishbowl head.
And make it look good.
Exactly. It's either going to look corny or they're going to change them because it's so hard to do.
Right.
No.
Yeah, we did not get the skin tight, vulture suit.
Yeah, exactly.
Which looked ridiculous. They updated it and made it work. But this one, this is basically Mysterio's costume. The fishbowl head is
the pyramid eye thing on him too.
Yeah. And so it was really good. So you mentioned, there were a couple things that don't hold up for you. So I know we've talked about this off camera, that you're not a big fan of Zendaya's MJ and that relationship with the two of them. So talk to me a little bit about why.
So again, like you said, I think in our other videos and our other show on Talking Geek, I'm a comic book nerd. I love the comic books. And I've said it before, this isn't my MJ. My MJ's always been a redhead.
A model.
Yeah, supermodel.
Absolutely.
Let's face it. She's a supermodel. And, she's run her own store. She's very confident, and she holds herself to that high confidence standards when you see her. The moment in the comics we first meet her, after he meets Betty, after he meets...
Gwen.
No, I don't think he even met Gwen yet.
Oh, no?
He meets MJ first, I think.
Okay.
But there's another girl. I forgot who he dates. There's another girl in the middle. We get the first line of MJ, you just hit the jackpot, Tiger. That famous Spider-Man line.
Yeah, calling him Tiger.
Her.
And
And we get nothing from her. I mean, don't get me wrong. She's a great actor. I want to point that out. I really think she's a good actress.
This is a completely different version.
Exactly.
They're pitching, the Midtown High, right? Is that the name of his high school? Is, very, it's the geekiest of the nerdies. It's all of, they're all hyper intelligent. Even, Flash, who is, again, a very different version of Flash. Yes. He's still very smart. Like, he was still part of the team on the last one that was like the, decathlon team, or whatever it was.
It's decathlon, yeah.
And
but
so
that's not our Flash either.
no, it's not. But they've definitely they've made that school a very exclusive, like, you kind of have to be at a certain level of intelligence.
Yeah.
And within that, they've pitched kind of MJ and Peter as almost like the two smartest ones.
Yeah.
And that's led to them both being extremely awkward, extremely, and so again, they're telling a very different version. I'm with you. I actually, this time watching, I've never felt it before, but this time watching, I was kind of like, I'm not 100% into this like very awkward teen romance.
I'm not either. And it's not, I don't know what it is. I just cannot. Again, maybe reading comics for the last 30 years, I want my redhead MJ.
Yeah.
Maybe not Kristen Dunst, who did MJ back with Tobey Maguire, but she was at least a redheaded.
Yeah, well,
she wasn't even a model.
And she was the damsel in distress.
Yeah, and MJ's not that either.
And so it was kind of like they've never gotten MJ right on the big screen.
She should be a strong woman, very independent. She loves Peter for what he does, and she supports him through his emotional trials because that's what he's always facing.
Yes,
but she never needs Peter. It almost as Peter needs her.
And it does feel very much like, the direction they wanted to go with this one was, they wanted to give him kind of a relatable, because it did always feel a little bit weird that, the nerd Peter Parker, who's socially awkward, is, able to, charm, the supermodel MJ.
And I think what helps in the comics, in which they haven't ever done in the movies, is it's supposed to be Aunt May's friend's niece.
Right.
So that's the connection. And he's actually not in high school when he meets her.
Right.
So he's already starting college. So he's kind of already out of that awkward teen phase. And he's just a nerd now. So to me, that's what makes it sell better, is because she didn't get to know nerdy Peter Parker. She gets to know Peter after he's bitten by the spider.
Right. He's been Spider-Man already.
Yeah, for a couple of years. Because he gets his powers roughly like junior, senior year. So he's already has the toned body. He's already getting some of that confidence as just even Peter Parker. And then again, you have the connection of where they have to meet because it's, my aunt wants me to, I don't want to meet her. It's probably like some random, like, whatever.
Yeah.
But then he sees this supermodel girl and it's like, you're this girl's niece? Like, my aunt's like 90 and the friend's 90. Like, what? So I think they just haven't sold that pitch. That's why we can't, like you say, we can't get that supermodel girlfriend kind of thing because he's not there yet.
Yeah. And I don't think we're going to get it with this version, which is disappointing because I kind of want that too. But
I just don't like that they don't even call her Mary Jane because her name's something else.
Yeah, well, I think it's Michelle.
Yeah, I never
in
got
this.
that.
So again, it's a different version of MJ, and I don't want them to. Now that they've given us this, I don't want there to be
a real Mary Jane,
the other MJ version. Like, I think that would be really jarring to have now. Oh, now we've got the supermodel redhead whose name is Mary Jane, and we also call her MJ, and now Peter's fallen in love with her. Like, that would feel really weird. So I don't think we'll get that.
And my thing is, I also don't think, and I hate it. I mean, everybody goes to Mary Jane because that is who he marries in the comics, who he loves, who even now that they're not married, he's still missing her. There's still a lot going on in the comic book world with that. If you rush into it like they're doing, we cannot get Gwen Stacy. And I don't think we're going to get Gwen Stacy in this.
No, I don't think we're going to get Gwen Stacy in this.
That.
Yeah. But, okay, so we're not a big fan of that relationship.
No.
What else? Anything else that stands out that you go, I'm not really a big fan of that either?
I know he's in the comics, Ned. I like Ned, but I don't at the same time.
Well, and this is one of those things where I feel like they... Okay, so they wrote this part for I mean they're young, teens, 20-year-old actors kind of thing, and, it's really like by the time they made the second movie, Jacob Batalon, who is the actor that plays Ned, he looks like he went through the 5 years without being blipped. Like he looks so much older than the rest of them. And it's awkward. Like all of the rest of them, Zendaya looks age appropriate. Tom Holland looks age appropriate. Andrew Rice, who plays Betty Brant, looks age appropriate. They all look like they're still, high school age, kids. And Ned does not anymore. No. Ned looks like he's in college at least.
Yeah.
And it's awkward, and it's almost like I really wish they just found like they needed that friend because they established him in Homecoming. They needed it to be the same guy, but I really wish that they had him 5 years older. I think that would have been an interesting story to tell. Is now he's in college and he lived through the world without Peter and all I think that would have been really interesting to tell, but obviously that's not the direction they went.
See, and I agree with you on that 100%. And don't get me wrong, I know Ned and Betty get in the comics, they get married. I think they get divorced even, but they actually do get together in the comics. And
I like their relationship better than I like Peter and Jace.
I kind of give you that too. I think it would have been good, like you said, if we would have gotten the 5 years, because he doesn't look like he fits in. Yeah. But it would have been cool if then you bring in Harry Osborn as like the transfer student or something, or somebody comes in and he has that awkwardness too, and they start getting along. Or maybe it's Ned's friend that he met because there was no one left. They just happened to meet, and he was like 2 or 3 years behind him.
I like it.
Then it's like, oh, hey, by the way, Peter, I'm not there anymore, but he was right behind me, so I got to know him better because he was a freshman, I was a senior, and you can still leave that 4 years or so. And now he's a junior or whatever.
Yeah.
And bam, now you have the Harry Osborn Peter friendship that we're used to for the last couple of decades, if not longer.
Yeah.
Because they are supposed to be best friends.
I would definitely be on board for that.
I would have loved that. That would have been a good route to go.
And this is one of those things where I'm still wondering when and how are they going to get to the Osborns with this universe?
Because they haven't touched
it. It sounds like, it's going to have to be when he goes off to college. Yeah. Because how do you introduce, again, maybe a transfer student, but it also would feel a little bit jarring unless something happens to Ned that he's all of a sudden going to develop a best friend relationship with someone else.
Exactly. Because, he's too awkward to have too many best friends. Yeah. Like, he needs just like a couple. Yeah. And he has it with Mary Jane and Ned. I wish there was a way to get...
Or Michelle.
Michelle, whatever.
Not Mary Jane.
Don't remind me. But yeah, like, I really think they should have done something like you said. Because he does look like he's aged like a lot, and not offense to him.
Well, and they give him and like that haircut on him.
Oh my!
Because they're trying to give him like a kid haircut, and it makes it look really makes it look very jarring. So all right, so moving on.
Yeah.
Let's we got there. Let's talk about the end credit scene. So the first end credit scene,
I loved it.
I remember in theaters. Again, J.K. Simmons returns as J. Jonah Jameson, and I remember the moment he was on screen, I did this.
Same.
And I was like, it's amazing. And then I remember the knowledge he drops when he goes, and Peter Parker, Spider-Man's real name is Peter Parker, and I went and I had the same reaction that Spider-Man does, which is what the, and I just was like, I can't believe they just did that. Like they just outed Spider-Man.
Yes.
So now, that's what happens. We get the return of J.K. Simmons, which is amazing.
Oh, I'm so glad he came back.
I can't imagine anyone else in that role.
No,
he's perfect for J. Jonah Jameson.
A little bald now, but it's okay.
Yeah, and it works. And they kind of, instead of being a newspaper. He's now kind of
controversial news website. I think they called him.
Exactly. And so the dailybugle.net now, instead of it being a newspaper, and it
updated, perfect.
Yeah, I think that works really well. And
hates Spider-Man still.
Still hates Spider-Man. He's a menace.
Yep.
Right. So now the question I have for you is, was that an illusion? So was it not really revealed to the whole world? Was that an illusion for Peter, for him to think that his identity has been revealed?
Ooh.
Or, is that truly what happened? And now, what's going to be our next step? So what do you think?
Here's what I'm thinking. First of all, I agree with you. I was the same way when I saw him back as J. Jonah Jameson, I clapped. I was like, yes. I was so excited.
Oh, man.
My girlfriend at the time was like, what? I was like, they brought him back. I was like, that's the only person I wanted to come back from Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's perfect.
So I was happy like that. And then when he said, Peter Parker, I was like, wait, what? And yeah, but I'm so glad he came back as J. Jonah Jameson. Even though he's a little bald, they still did the same haircut on his side. He still has like the little gray with the brown.
Yeah.
I loved it. So I think it was real because Quentin tells the other guy, I forgot the other scientist guy.
Yeah. Who, by the way, is in the first Iron Man movie.
Yes,
in which
so
they call
he came
out.
Back.
Yeah. So Peter Billingsley, who is the child in A Christmas Story, is that actor. And so we've come full circle. We get footage from Iron Man as well as from Captain America: Civil War in this movie, and so tying it all together, it's pretty cool.
It was perfect. I love that he's in it.
Yeah.
So he tells him, he has a plan for this. Right. And you see him get the download complete, pull the USB drive off, and leave.
Yep.
So I think it was real. I think this is but I also think Mysterio is alive because of this.
Yes.
I don't think he did this knowing he was going to die. Because he's not getting any fame or fortune if he dies.
Right. Because the question is, when did he record that?
Exactly.
So he must have recorded that before the battle with Spider-Man. And so it's, it is a question of how deep was that illusion on the bridge? Mm-hmm. And was there ever anyone there at all?
Exactly. So that's what I'm wondering too. Like, I think it was filmed when Spider-Man's looking up and you see all the drones kind of circling it. I think that's when he was filming it. And then they just added the rest of it whenever Peter got in the right spot.
Yep.
Then he did everything else.
Right.
But I really do think that first Mysterio was alive.
I think so
and
too.
I think that this was real because now you can get the whole I'm back, everybody, and he didn't kill me. Spider-Man's not as strong as you think. And now J. Jonah Jameson working with Mysterio because J. Jonah in the comic books hates Spider-Man.
Oh, 100%.
I think up until like 10 years ago, there was like this whole thing of where Jade actually finds out that it's Peter and he's tolerant, but he still doesn't like that he's Spider-Man. But he's only tolerant because he loves Peter Parker.
Right.
Because throughout everything in the comics, J. Jonah Jameson loves Peter as almost like a second son kind of thing. So that's the only reason he doesn't hate Spider-Man maybe anymore, but he tolerates him.
Sure.
But it's still, I don't like you because you're Spider-Man.
Right.
But I think what happens, in the comics, what happens too is he creates a Scorpion. He creates a villain to go kill Spider-Man.
Right.
So I think this would be a way to maybe even tie a Sinister Six. We've seen the Scorpion already.
We have.
We know the Vulture's running with him right now.
Yep. So they're in the same prison, right?
Yep. And so if Mysterio does come, like this dude miraculous comeback or whatever, maybe J. Jonah will be the person who puts the Sinister Six together.
Maybe.
So
that could be cool.
That would be interesting. If he creates Scorpion who gets Vulture to join in, and there's half the Sinister Six.
Yeah. And it is like there are so many directions you can take with this now.
Yes.
That, okay,
Back
so
in Black storyline.
Is Peter going to have to go on the run? Are we going to maybe get, someone who, is a hunter, maybe named Kraven, who wants to, take down the world's most dangerous game, and is, so maybe we could introduce that villain who now knows Spider-Man's identity.
We can track him
now. There's
now we know the Scorpion wanted to know that,
and yes,
and he said I have friends on the outside. Didn't he say something like that?
Yeah, and because when he confronted Michael Keaton's Vulture, and who is the villain that ended up in the comics killing Aunt May? Well, they were trying to kill Spider. Was that Kraven?
No, it was Kingpin hiring a hitman.
That's right.
So Kingpin in the comics. When they find out they do that.
We could go, a Kingpin route. We could get a Kingpin introduced. So there's a lot of directions that we could go
anywhere
with Peter Parker's identity being known. And, now is he going to, again, have to be on the run? So.
I would see, personally, what I would love to see, and I don't think they would ever do this in period.
Yeah.
Vincent D'Onofrio.
He's so good as Kingpin.
Coming back as Kingpin. Because he didn't die in Daredevil.
Nope.
And if you watch the deleted scene, they kind of go over the fight scene a little bit more. He comments who he's fighting. It's like the mafia or something. That fight scene where he's in like a restaurant, I think. And he tells the cops, "Oh, I can't. I have to do your job too, or something."
Oh, right.
So
yeah.
the deleted scene is an extended version of that.
Correct. Yes. And it's actually that scene's not in the movie at all. It was in previews.
Oh, I watched the deleted scenes too, so I got it crossed.
And then it's in the deleted scenes.
Yeah, I got it crossed. So in the deleted scenes, you see him where he fights this mob group, and he talks about who's who in the group.
Correct.
So it could be that maybe it's not the Mafia, maybe it's Kingpin's men.
Sure.
And now Kingpin's like, I need to take Spider-Man down. He's going to ruin my empire. Sniper comes, takes out Aunt May. And I would love to see, and I know, again, I don't think they'll bring Vincent D'Onofrio Mephisto. Okay, thanks. I don't like you, Mephisto. But, I don't think, first of all, I don't think they'll bring Vincent D'Onofrio.
No, I don't think so.
But it would be cool if they did.
It would be amazing.
So if they bring him out, they do the whole thing, but then Venom comes out too. So maybe somehow tie Venom to, like, he's already sad, Aunt May's dying. And then the symbiote, hey, I can give you that strength.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think that will happen because we do already have Venom sort of adjacent in this universe with Tom Holland. We're not reviewing that movie.
No.
But
I mean, it would be cool. It would just be cool because in the comics, he goes back to the black suit.
Correct.
And then he goes and fights Kingpin and beats the crap out of him.
So there's a lot of directions that we could go with this, with his identity being known. And so it'll be really interesting to see what they do next.
I just realized I got a name right.
Now, let's talk about the second post-credit scene where it is revealed that Nick Fury has not been Nick Fury. He has been Talos the Skrull.
And his wife, right?
And his wife, and I don't remember her name. So Ben Mendelsohn is the actor that plays Talos. So he returns as the Skrull, and you kind of get a little bit of a funny line. It's actually, I think, I don't remember this line the first time I saw it, but it was maybe my favorite line watching it yesterday is in that scene. Because he's like talking with his wife, and he is recording the video, and before he does it, he's talking with her about like how it was all an illusion, and he's like it's kind of embarrassing for a shapeshifter. Because
I love that.
And I was like, that's a great line.
I loved it. I've always loved
that. And
so
so he's been impersonating Nick Fury because Nick Fury is in space.
On the base, we assume.
Apparently, we assume he is setting up SWORD, the cosmic or space version of S.H.I.E.L.D. And so, again, it seems like we're setting up some epic things in Phase 4 with that reveal. And so, yeah, really cool. What do you think about that?
So on my first watch, I loved it because I remember the shapeshifter line. I love it.
I don't think I caught it the first time, and this time I was like, that's brilliant.
You were still shocked.
Yeah, I was. It was like 8 minutes later, and I was still shocked that they had told the world that Spider-Man was Peter Parker.
I loved it. On the second watch, I noticed something looks off with his makeup for some reason. Maybe because it's so close.
Yeah, maybe.
Something didn't look right with the chin. I can still let it slide, but it still looked good.
Yep.
It still looks really amazing. I love that scene because throughout the whole film, like we just said, something was off with Nick Fury, and now we know it wasn't him.
Correct.
We know Talos only is going to know short-term memories of everybody, I believe, unless Nick tells him, like, hey, by the way,
and I'm sure Nick has, been like, okay, you're going to impersonate me, so here are the things that you need to do or whatever, and, all those things. And so he does kind of a passable job.
Yes.
And, us as fans that have been, watching Nick Fury over several movies or reading him in the comics for a long time, we kind of go, is that really? But Spider-Man's never met Nick Fury before.
No, he had no idea what to
Quentin
look
Beck has never met, Nick Fury before. Happy has probably had some interactions with him, but not to the point where he'd go like, that's not Nick Fury.
Exactly.
Like, because, again, there are very few people that even know about the existence of Skrulls.
Yeah.
At this point, like, I assume that Happy doesn't know that Skrulls exist.
I mean, I only assume whoever was in Captain Marvel is the only ones that know.
True.
Anyone outside of that,
even within that, like, Coulson probably doesn't know, even though he was there.
The only way I will say Coulson might know. So in this movie, there is a crud ton of Easter eggs.
There are. Yes.
Tahiti was an Easter egg in it. Because remember, Nick Fury is sitting there.
He is.
So there is a small chance that maybe Coulson might know. I would say a small chance. And the only reason I would say he would know is because of Tahiti Project and because of Captain Marvel. He had to have, Nick may have said, I thought you were in the car with me. There's an alien.
Yeah. I mean, you wonder how much Nick shared with him.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he was a rookie at that point,
true.
too.
He was a rookie.
So, but he did grow to become,
one of the top agents.
Yeah, kind of his second right-hand man. Because, of course, Marie Hill is
always going to be right there.
But yeah. So, all right, we've talked a lot about this movie. We've talked a lot about, all the things that it does. It wraps up Phase 3 really well.
Yes.
It also, I think, sets up Phase 4. really well. I think it does both things very well. There are some cool callbacks to, like we said, Iron Man and Civil War that I really enjoyed. I think the final thing that I'm going to say I didn't enjoy, and this has been my same gripe, is once again we have a villain who is an Iron Man villain. Yeah. He's a Spider-Man villain because Mysterio's from Spider-Man comics, but once again, for the movie version, they are disgruntled former Stark employees who want to get control of Stark tech and are using, Spider-Man as a means to an end. Yeah. Until, of course, there is that moment that it flips where he really does say, "I'm going to kill you, Peter Parker." Yeah. And the same thing happens with Vulture. In the first one, but it's now the second time in these movies that the reason these characters are doing the things that they do, the villainous reason, ultimately it began with Tony, which I know he began everything with Iron Man in 2008. That was the start of the MCU. Yeah. But it is kind of annoying and frustrating for me.
I get you on that one, and I'm waiting because we've already seen Scorpion in the works. Yep. Shocker's in the works. Right. Technically, Prowler's in the works. Yep. So we have 3 Prowler, I would say anti-hero.
Correct.
He does do some villainous things at times.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we have 3 potential ones of Peter out there. And it's kind of bites that we haven't touched on that yet. Like we are still, I guess you could say, wrapping up Iron Man's storylines like Edith and... he calls my technology, nicknamed it Barf. Yeah, and I'm like, really? That's your gripe? Like,
well, and then he get fired and, all that stuff. He's crazy. But he is crazy. Like, that's part of the thing is like Tony Stark fired me because I was crazy. Well, you kind of are crazy. So, he's kind of right. Yeah. But yeah, that's my biggest disappointment with this movie as well as with Spider-Man Homecoming is that the villains feel like they're Iron Man villains that they didn't have an Iron Man movie for. Yeah. And so even though they dressed them up as Vulture and dressed them up as Mysterio and they gave them all the characteristics of those characters from the comics, like they did a good job, but their origin is tied into Tony Stark and Iron Man. And that's just a little bit disappointing.
And I give you that. I completely 100% understand that. And again, I guess when you have, like you said, Tony starting this 2008, 12 years ago at this point, you have loose ends to tie up,
I guess so.
But I do like that they did tie it to Iron Man. The 2008 Iron Man with
Tony Stark built this in the cave with nothing but scraps.
And I'm so happy about that part because I always wondered what happened to that guy. Like they just yelled at him. He got fired probably, and now he did get fired.
I'm not Tony Stark.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad for that part though.
Yeah. It felt a very fitting end to Marvel's Phase 3 and the Infinity Saga, while also setting up some exciting new things in Phase 4. Yep. So, with all that being said, it's time for final thoughts and overall score. Go for it.
All right. So, again, I'm a Spider-Man fan. I'm always going to love Spider-Man no matter what. Even I loved Tobey Maguire when I had to. Now I have other ones to love instead.
Spider-Man 3 was your favorite.
Yeah.
And then The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Then that became your favorite.
Just threw up a little bit in my mouth. So, but no, I really do love the Spider-Man. I think Tom Holland is able to nail Peter Parker and he's able to nail Spider-Man. Yep. We're able to finally get both of those to come out and be part of our universe for the right person to do the right job. I guess. Overall,
and we get another one because Tom Holland saved us.
Tom Holland saved us. Yeah. I would say this again. There's very little drawback I have. I do have a small issue with the blip. I think the joke is a little run out sometimes. The whole my blip beard. I was like, I could live without that joke. It was kind of dumb.
Yeah, there are moments where like the high school level humor is a little bit over the top, especially with like the teachers.
Yes, I actually did not like the teachers in this film. Neither one of them.
Yeah, I think Martin Starr, who plays the kind of the main teacher,
the one
glasses,
that was right.
Yeah, and he was the one that was in the last movie as well. Yeah. I think his stuff is hit or miss. Like I'm
more miss for me, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other teacher, I didn't really enjoy any of his.
I could live without him at all. I mean, again, the joke. I'm a scientist, so witches. Okay.
Yeah, it's weird.
Like
it's a weird joke.
Yeah, it's some of the jokes were a little off for me. So I will say that the blip was a little off for me. I did like how they explained it. Because I think one of our other shows, I did the joke of what happens if you were in the middle of the sky and you just blip back. There's no plane and you're just gonna fall.
Yeah.
But I like it. They have the band blip in the middle of a basketball game. They all run into each other.
Yeah, and I think that there was even. I think the writer of Endgame came out to address that and was like, "Well, that was Hulk made sure to return everyone safely."
Yeah,
but in my mind, I'm like, okay, what about like when we see that helicopter crash at the end of Infinity War? What if so the pilot blipped away, but what about the passengers that were in there? Did they just die because it crashed? Like they didn't come back.
But overall, I really still enjoy this movie. I sat with my daughter and watched it again. I would still give this a solid 9.8 because, again, Spider-Man for me is always going to get a high rating. No duh.
Wow.
But I no movie's perfect in my mind, ever.
You had a lot of complaints about a 9.8 movie.
I mean, exactly. It's Spider-Man. Spider-Man starts out at 9.1.
Automatic 3-point boost.
No. He starts off at 9.1. He doesn't go down. He just goes up.
Okay, I see. Okay.
But again, I really loved it. Like you said, it tied a lot of loose ends that were just sitting there that I didn't even know needed to be tied up, honestly. So my overall thoughts, I think, again, the first time I saw this movie, I thought it was the best live-action Spider-Man movie I'd ever seen. Exactly. But I was also coming off the high of those 2 post-credit scenes, which I think... those are 2 of the best scenes in the entire movie. Oh, yeah.
With the reveal of J.K. Simmons returning and the reveal of Spider-Man as Peter Parker, and then the reveal that Nick Fury hasn't been Nick Fury, explaining away that gnawing, kind of little bit in my brain. And it was like, and so that was the first time I saw it. And so watching it again, it was like, I wonder if it'll be the same now watching it a second time, knowing those, that twist, knowing that that's coming, knowing that it's not Nick Fury this whole time, will it still hold up? I think mostly it did. Okay. I think there's a couple things that I think don't hold up as well for me. I think some of Mysterio's kind of plot and his motivations and how he's going about things. I go, how well would all of that really hold up? Yeah. And so there's some of that. Some of the romance stuff between Peter and MJ didn't hold up for me as much as I liked it the first time around. This time around, it was like, wow, they're really awkward. And I'm, kind of just like, okay, can we move past this now? And... again, I think most of the humor is actually really good, but there is some miss in some of there. So overall, I don't know if it's still my favorite Spider-Man live action movie because I haven't seen Spider-Man 2 in so long, and I remember loving Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock, and that original one. I think it's really good. I think it probably still is. I still like it better than Homecoming. Okay. I still think Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man and Peter Parker. And so I think it's still my favorite Spider-Man live action movie, but I'm not sure anymore like I was. My overall score, I'm going to give this an 8.2. He's wrong. I think it's a really, really, really good movie. It's got a lot of really great scenes. Again, I think that sequence in Berlin where Mysterio is playing around with all of the illusions and everything, I think is one of the best sequences in any Marvel movie, in any superhero movie ever. Like, it's beautiful. It's well scripted. All of those things all lead up to, again, I just think a really, really good movie.
One thing we didn't talk about, I want to comment real quick. Yep. The homage to Iron Man in the plane.
Yeah. And even with him reaching in with his arm,
pulls it up the same
which is
way.
a very, that was, again, something that Tony did in the first Iron Man when he was kind of developing the suit.
And seeing Happy there to see it. Yeah, it was beautiful.
It was really cool, and that's a joke that I think really works really well when he throws on AC/DC's Back in Black, and it's I love Led Zeppelin, and you're like, this teenage kid.
Yeah, I was like, I will say this, when he first said that in the theater, I was like, wait, and it was like it took me like a whole 2 minutes to be like, that's AC/DC.
That's not Led Zeppelin. So, anyways, those are our thoughts on Spider-Man Far From Home. These have been our thoughts on the MCU's Infinity Saga, because we are now finished.
Yep.
We've completed our retrospective review of the Infinity Saga. Definitely keep tuning in. We're going to be putting out more content. We might even put out another video on the MCU where we rank all of our MCU movies. We've been talking about doing that, so you might get one more bonus video of the MCU. And certainly as new MCU movies come out, we will be reviewing them. So when Black Widow comes out, we'll review that. Certainly the Disney Plus shows, we'll be reviewing that for you guys. And we're definitely going to be looking for maybe another series of movies to drop a retrospective review on. So if there's something that you want to hear us talk about, drop that in the comments. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on this video as well. Let us know your thoughts. Is this the best Spider-Man movie that's ever been made? Maybe outside of, is Spider-Verse better? But he's got me there. Is this maybe a weaker one? And you go, yeah, it wasn't really that good. I didn't really care about, Mysterio or whatever. Let us know. Drop it in the comments. We want to hear from you. We want to talk with you. And at the end of the day, we've really enjoyed doing this. We hope you've enjoyed watching it. So be sure to tune in next time, guys. Again, for Get Your Geek On, I'm Robert. That's Aaron. And stay geeky.